Sienna, I guess we're good. Perfect. So thanks everyone, and welcome to the Community Relations Group conversation. I'm David Planella, Director of Community Relations. If you have any questions regarding any of the slides, feel free to let us know. We can delve into more detail. Otherwise, we're happy to dive into the questions. Well, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, perhaps one thing that I'll mention, I'm just going to share one slide. There'll be some changes in the team. That's the current lineup. One of our community advocates, Georgia, is going to be transitioning to the SDR team in November. And we've got two new community advocates starting, one next week on the 28th of October and another one on the 18th of November. We're close to get, or with the last stages of open source program manager and filling in the position for open source program manager and education program manager, but we're not there yet.
Hi, David, it's Alsha. I thought I'd start us all off. I thought I'd ask, what is a typical day for a community advocate at GitLab?
Guess I'll let either Emily or Bora, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day. I mean, typically log in and see if there are any mentions of GitLab across social that still need to be monitored on Twitter, Hacker News, Reddit, or wherever. And then we clear the ones that are currently in the queue. And then, yeah, periodically make sure to check back at Zendesk to see if there are any more that need to be responded to. And that's kind of our baseline job. And then we also run some separate programs like the EDU and OSS programs kind of on the side. So yeah, I guess does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
So I'm on the community team. My name is John Coughlin. I manage the Meetups and Heroes programs. But I have another question for Emily. Emily, I'm wondering, like, how do you kind of like manage your self-care? Because I imagine that your role can be pretty tough with when there are like these periods of time where there's negative responses to posts and things. Like, how do you manage through those situations? Are there, like tools or kind of practices that you follow to kind of, keep yourself in a positive frame of mind?
So I'm currently still trying to figure that out because, yeah, these past few weeks have been probably the most negative I've encountered since I've started working here. So I'll get back to you when I figure that out.
Okay. Thanks, John and Emily. Stephen, do you want to verbalize your question?
Yes, I saw on slide 5 that contributions declined after the migration to the single code base, and was just curious if we had any ideas or leading theories on why that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take that question. I mean, thanks for the question, Stephen. So, I mean, even before the move to the single code base, that's something that we're a bit concerned about. I mean, first of all, I think for a long time, people were used to finding issues, for example, in CE, and that the whole a project sort of went away. So wanting to see how many people were following. There were a lot of posts on blogs and like Twitters on the move to a single code base, but I mean, it was pretty obvious afterwards that people weren't all aware of our migration to a single code base. So I mean, it looks like we're starting to recover. I mean, particularly there was a post from who used to contribute in the past. Like he posted on Gitter, hey, what happened to CE? That was one of the questions that came up, and another contributor jumped in and reminded them of the move that we made to a single code base. So I think awareness was one of them. So I mean, I think we made a lot of moves, including making announcements on MRs for people who submitted MRs on CE, but I don't think the word got out to everybody. So just, but I think we're on the path to recovery. So I think that's one of the main things that I think contributed to slight dip in contribution for a few weeks. Hope that helps, Stephen.
Awesome, thanks for that.
Yeah. Yep.
I think one thing that I would add as well in terms of awareness, we did write a blog post announcement from the engineering team on the move, and then Bray followed up with another one for contributors, specifically on clarifying some parts on how to contribute to CE or to the single code repository. The other thing that happened as well was that we couldn't move the merge request automatically onto the single code repository. So quite a few were closed. I think it was over 100, and Ray has been following up with each of those contributors individually to get them resubmitted onto the new project, and that's been slowing down things a bit as well.
Gotcha.
Darwin, do you want to also vocalize your question?
Sure. Before I joined GitLab, it was hard to figure out how to find the new issue. It was a real goose chase for me. And then while I was at DevOps Days with some other GitLab folks, I saw someone click the closed tag and it took them to the new issue. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really awesome. But I don't think it's easy to understand that when you just encounter an issue that's been closed and moved to the new code base. And I might be missing, is there a link down below in the conversation that goes to the new issue, or is it just that closed tag that can get you there? Does anyone, maybe I just need an update.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin, I think that was some of the discussions that happened after the move to a single code base. Like there wasn't a reference to the new issue in new GitLab project, or what used to be called EE, right? So people had to go search for it by retyping the title. So that wasn't very elegant, and that was, I think, one of our learnings from the single code base move. So that, yeah, we did hear complaints from people about I couldn't find where the new issue went to. So I mean, that's a very good point. So it's not necessarily obvious that it was auto closed because of the single code base, or somebody actually closed the issue because it was done. But
Is it possible to batch update them to
Uh,
elicit that info, or?
That's a good question. I don't know if like Mac or somebody from your team, I think you guys are involved in that discussion too. Like, I don't know if that was ever brought up about like auto batching those and adding those info into the old issue that were auto closed, but that's a good question.
Yeah,
Hey, Mac here. So I believe this will be a question for both the delivery team and us. We were helping with some of the tooling. But from my understanding is that the link to the new issue is actually in the close tag. It should link you to the new issue in the new repo, and that's documented.
Yeah, it's just not easy when you go to an individual issue to notice that, and I don't think it's in each issue, or is it documented in each issue? And then Google is indexing the old ones much higher, probably because of past activity on them. So when you do search it, it can be pretty challenging to make your way there from landing on an individual issue. Because I don't know about others, but for myself, a lot of times how I found my old issues was Google in the first place.
So Mac, what we could do, like there's a robot, there's the robot that has like a super long message about that it got moved and everything else. It would be great if we edit that message and say at the top, move to, and then a URL, and at the bottom, move to, and then a URL, and then show that actual URL and make it clickable so that people don't have to kind of process that enormous message.
Got it. So we update the message from the bottom with the clear URL.
I think, yeah, every one of the issues I've seen had that bot message. It's just a long message, and I think it should have a very clear move to at the top and the bottom, and then people can read the actual message for more context. That's a very specific implementation, so feel free to disagree, but that's something I could see.
I think we do have the reference somewhere, and we have tools to update the message. I don't think it's that hard. We'll link it back to the team.
Cool, because I do think that long message somewhere in it contains a link to it, but yeah, people just want to go to the new thing.
Yep, great. Less is more.
I'll go ahead and verbalize my question. For MRs where work has stopped, how much time do we allow for follow-up before deciding to pick up the work internally?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I think it depends on a case-by-case basis. I mean, that's something I could do a better job of in terms of follow-up, but I mean, certain MRs that have not been active gets tagged, and then we get all the MR coaches, including myself and David, we get a report. So we try to follow up on it. I mean, what I typically try to do is after a couple of follow-ups, if there's no response, I leave it to the reviewer to make a decision as to whether, you know, if the work is worth continuing or we should just close it. So probably about a couple of months that we give contributors to make a decision as to whether they want to continue or not. But I hope that helps, Nick.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And again, let us know if you want us to go through any of the slides in particular. Okay, I think if there aren't any more questions today, we can give everyone some minutes of their time. So thanks a lot for everyone for joining in. Thanks a lot for your questions, and then see you on the next one.